Hello everybody, I just wanted to remind you to bring your water this Sunday, September 16th, for our annual Ingathering service. Those of you who've done it before know that we get water from a variety of places, basically wherever you have been this summer that was important to you, and you bring it, a little bit of water, to the church, and we gather it together. People share where it's from, and that helps us to sort of get a sense of where we've all been since we saw each other last. We do use that water. We keep some of it and filter it and use it for liturgical things like mostly baptisms, but every once in a while there's some other kind of blessing where it's nice to have some water around. So it does have a life after our little gathering ritual. I wanted to share with you my water, which is in this always attractive used Gatorade bottle. It comes from Star Island, which is part of the Isles of Shoals, which is a collection of islands that straddles the line between Maine and New Hampshire. Star Island itself is in New Hampshire, but some of the others, including the famous Smutty Nose Island, is just across the border in Maine. We went there also. And interestingly enough, I think this water has some connection to the reading I want to share with you now, which is from Celia Thaxter. And Celia Thaxter is a writer, poet, conversationalist, and interesting, just all around interesting philosopher and thinker. And she grew up on not on Star Island, on the Isles of Shoals, first on a little rock, basically, with a lighthouse on it. Her father was a lighthouse keeper. And then later on Appledore Island, which is one of the bigger ones, although that's all relative. They're all quite tiny. And she had a lot of famous friends who would come out and visit her. There was an inn on Appledore Island, and she was the hostess. And people would come out. A lot of the Transcendentalists that we talk about in church all knew Celia Thaxter and enjoyed her company and her welcome to that part of the world. It's a very interesting set of islands, and I encourage you to check them out sometime if you have some time. It's a trip. There's a ferry boat involved. So anyway, she was an interesting person, and you'd think, given the theme of the Sunday, that what I would be reading would be about water. She spent most of her life surrounded by it. It is, of course, Ingathering Sunday, which has a water theme. But the day also has a more general environmental theme. And I wanted to share something about soil, about the land. Celia Thaxter was actually a famous gardener, among other things. In fact, her friend, the painter Child Hassam, painted a picture of her in her garden on Appledore Island. And this reading comes from her book, which is, I think, the last book she wrote, 1904. It was about a year before she died. And it's entitled An Island Garden. And it's, as you might imagine, musings about gardens and about growing things in the midst of what's really a form of wilderness, which would be the Atlantic. So anyway, here's part of the poem now, and it's entitled Dust. Here is a problem, a wonder for all to see. Look at this marvelous thing I hold in my hand. This is a magic, surprising, a mystery, strange as a miracle, harder to understand. What is it? Only a handful of earth. To your touch, a dry, rough powder you trample beneath your feet, dark and lifeless. But think for a moment how much it hides and holds that is beautiful, that is bitter or sweet. Think of the glory of color, the red of the rose, green of the myriad leaves in the fields of grass, yellow as bright as the sun where the daffodil blows, purple where violets nod as the breezes pass. Think of the manifold form of the oak and the vine, nut and fruit and cluster and ears of corn, of the anchored water lily, a thing divine, unfolding its dazzling snow to the kiss of morn. Who shall compass or fathom God's thought profound? We can but praise, for we may not understand. But there is no more beautiful riddle the whole world round than is hid in this heap of dust I hold in my hand. So, I hope to see you in church on Sunday, and we'll talk a little bit about water and dust. We'll talk about the environment. We'll talk about creation. We will talk about what it means to be people or a people in the midst of this world, in the midst of nature and everything else that gives us life and that we try to give life back to. Anyway, that is all for now. I hope you're all having a good week. You know how to get in touch with me, and I will see you on Sunday. Have a good one.